Walz made himself fair game, since his only attack was that the other guy was weird. Because everyone is weird, the more you get to know them. It's why marriage is a commitment. Over time, both spouses realize we're all bat crazy. But there's weird and there's dangerously insane. And that's thinking children can decide to have themselves castrated. And that's Tim. Kamala Harris has created her own scented candle. And just like her, it gets lit every night. She's a drunk.
Greg Gutfeld just unleashed a savage, laugh-out-loud takedown of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, torching every scrap of their political credibility. With sarcasm sharp as a scalpel and a wit quicker than a fact-checker, Gutfeld tore apart Kamala's word salad. Ramblings and Walz's lightweight leadership style like a demolition crew on double espresso. From Kamala's awkward giggles to Walz's endless task forces, nothing escaped. If political nonsense had a face, Gutfeld just slapped them both with a punchline of reality.
CBS's 60 Minutes was caught editing their interview with Kamala Harris to make her look better. It's a shocking ethical lapse. Mike Wallace must be rolling in his grave. Not over this, though, but that his son is Chris Wallace.
I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past but the future.
You know, that's some bad weed. Generally, when people get high, they actually have some interesting thoughts. Not her.
Gutfeld didn't merely show up that night, he stormed in like a comedian on a mission from the sarcasm gods. Armed with biting humor and a grin that warned, "This is going to sting," he took aim at the disaster duo of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. It wasn't just a roast, it was a double demolition. By the time he finished, the political scene had more holes than a Minnesota highway in winter.
Remained a constant, then what impacted the polls? And it's driven by identity politics.
We're gonna cook today.
Okay.
Is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you are Indian.
Yes. Yeah.
And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
What would Trump have to say about Kamala's qualifications?
Well, you know, she's flip-flopping, Greg. I mean, these are flip-flops. And Indian people and blacks wear flip-flops, which is good, but...
He kicked things off with Kamala, the vice president, whose resume reads like a lifetime bureaucrat's and whose communication skills resemble a glitchy GPS. Gutfeld leaned in on the bizarre rhythm of her public remarks, those stilted phrases that zigzag like a bad freestyle after swallowing a thesaurus. Every time she speaks, he joked, you can't tell if it's supposed to be policy or blackout poetry.
One of them, Politico says, is like Walz's wide eyes showed his passion and emotional intensity. Can we show that? There is his wide eyes. That humans would widen their eyes to convey that danger is close. What emotion are you getting from that? Sorry. Still.
He compared her delivery to someone who just discovered metaphors and now insists on smothering everything in them, whether they fit or not. As for substance, Gutfeld shredded Kamala's habit of skimming over problems with the depth of a puddle in Phoenix. He joked that expecting her to explain inflation was like asking a cat to do your taxes, lots of noise, zero results. She tiptoes around big issues as if they were made of breakable glass, adding a nervous laugh and a word salad so tossed it practically needs dressing.
With Walz, it's hard to even bring him up. He has a resting snitch face. You know? I mean, he forfeited his man card during COVID and the riots. And you're right. And also, at that diner, of course, he left early. So don't you find it weird that for a terrifying threat to democracy that Trump is, not a single interviewer in his history has approached him with trepidation?
If you wanted clarity, you'd get what sounded like a TED Talk from someone who skipped the rehearsal. He noted her infamous habit of dodging tough questions. Watching her in interviews, Gutfeld said was like seeing someone play dodgeball with facts. Whenever reality came at her, she ducked behind phrases like, "let's be clear," only to never actually be clear. He likened it to tuning into a cooking show where the chef explains lasagna using only cloud metaphors and awkward laughter. Insight. None, just a dance of confusion. Then he turned to the border crisis, a pet project of Kamala's that she seems to treat like a gym. Membership technically on the list, but never actually visited. Gutfeld roasted her for acting like the border was a fairy tale that might fix itself if ignored. He joked she was more likely to show up on Mars than McAllen. And when she does address immigration, she does it with the urgency of a weather update about a storm happening somewhere far away.
I want to see this in slow motion. You'll see Walz extends his hand to his wife. She grabs it, they shake, he pulls her close, and then goes in for that non-friction hug, all the while still shaking her hand. I wish there was a word to describe that. Oh yeah, weird.
Just as the audience thought it couldn't get sharper, Gutfeld pivoted to Tim Walz. If Kamala is the queen of confusion, Walz is her court jester of indecision. Gutfeld painted Walz as the kind of leader who strolls into a crisis with a clipboard and leaves with a shrug. Under his watch, Minnesota became a showcase of how to turn a once great state into a bureaucratic circus. Gutfeld roasted Walz's lockdown rules like a man who'd personally suffered every Zoom call, mask mandate, and official contradiction. He called him captain of the SS, maybe drifting through guidelines and restrictions like a confused DJ playing songs nobody requested. One day gyms are shut, the next you can wrestle there as long as you wear oven mitts. Health policy, Gutfeld quipped, written by a committee of squirrels on energy drinks.
As a teacher, my number one responsibility in the classroom is the safety, security, and belongingness of every single child in that room. These are children my son's age, a 4th grader, a 10-year-old, who just wants to go to the bathroom. And their identity is they are male or female, and they just go in that bathroom and use it, end quote. Sounds so folksy, you know? Belongingness. Yeah, they'll be belonging in therapy with this guy at the helm.
He didn't let Walz off easy for the crime wave either. Gutfeld said Walz treated the spike in crime like a rumor he hoped would vanish. Minnesota's biggest cities turned into hotspots of unrest and violence, while Walz responded with meetings, more press statements, and a look of mild concern. Gutfeld described him as someone who read the leadership manual backwards, starting with "blame everyone else" and skipping "take action." Watching Walz talk to reporters, he said, was like seeing a substitute teacher try to explain quantum physics to kindergartners, awkward, unnecessary, and painfully lost. Gutfeld ripped into his total lack of charisma, calling it soggy mop dull, and said his vision was about as clear as a bat in sunlight. He didn't lead, he stalled. He didn't decide, he delayed. And when things blew up, he acted like someone else had hidden the fuse.
Question of what can be unburdened by what has been.
We see what can be unburdened by what has been.
To see what can be unburdened by what has been.
Believing in what can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
Having faith in what can be unburdened by what has been.
See what can be unburdened by what has been. To see what can be unburdened by what has been.
You know, if Kamala gets dementia, it would be an improvement.
But Gutfeld wasn't done. He circled back to Kamala with the precision of a roastmaster on a mission. He dove into her days as California's Attorney General, arguing her reforms were more about grabbing headlines than delivering justice. He suggested her memory of past positions seemed to shift depending on the audience, calling her the political equivalent of a chameleon with Wi-Fi always updating.
This administration and the spouse swapping of the VP and the president, we saw it before. Like, Dr. Jill didn't kiss Joe like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And now he couldn't wait to get that full embrace. It wasn't a bro hug, it was a yo hug. And he put his wife in the friend zone.
Yes.
Which is always That must have been a fun car ride home.
Yeah.
Why can't you hug me like her husband? I mean, it's just... it's weird.
It is weird. You know, Joey, I think that it's okay to take Walz's picadillos, if you call it, apart, because remember, he broke the seal by calling Vance weird, and we're all weird, including him.
Yeah, we're very weird. I'm weird.
He pointed out her awkward public appearances, where she bursts into laughter at the worst moments like she's buffering in real life. Gutfeld joked that Kamala's nervous giggle could power a small wind farm and always arrives right when she realizes she doesn't have an answer. Asking her a yes or no question, he said, is like starting a Rube Goldberg machine, complicated, noisy, and irrelevant. Then he went back to Walz because there was so much material. Gutfeld couldn't resist mocking the governor's obsession with task forces and committees. Every issue from crime to potholes seemed to need another taxpayer-funded study or another panel, a giant procrastination machine. Gutfeld compared Walz's approach to how people handle laundry: just keep piling it up and hope someone else will take care of it. He also took aim at Walz's education record, where test scores fell while money poured into programs that sounded like rejected TED Talks. According to Gutfeld, kids weren't learning to read, but were learning to memorize buzzwords.
Kamala Harris is the Democrat candidate for president of the United States. I'll give you a second to come to. The border czar who couldn't find our southern border on a map of Texas now wants to be America's commander-in-chief. Kamala couldn't lead a campfire sing-along, let alone the country's armed forces. But does that matter? Not to the media. Now, they would like this framed as a team sport battle, left versus right, Democrat versus Republican. But in reality, it's the media narrative machine versus reality.
He paired their flaws like a connoisseur of dysfunction. Kamala's incoherence matched Walz's indecision, two halves of a wobbly coin. One gives speeches that sound scrambled, the other runs a state like he lost a coin toss halfway through. Together, Gutfeld said, they're the political equivalent of a buffering Wi-Fi signal, always loading, never working. He wrapped it all up by mocking their combined influence. Kamala shows up to deliver half-baked inspiration while Walz tries to manage his state like leadership can be microwaved. If you put them together in a room to solve a problem, Kamala would deliver a word salad so garbled even AI would crash, while Walz would nod form a task force and sneak out through the gift shop.
Who made her first major speech last night since Trump took office, and it was another classic ball of verbal vomit. Here she is referencing a viral video of elephants. Watch.
Who saw that video from a couple of weeks ago? The one of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo during the earthquake?
Gutfeld also called out Kamala's carefully curated public image built like a shaky Jenga tower of friendly interviews, positive headlines, and forced empathy. He contrasted it with Walz's bland beige persona like a 404 error that tries to run a state. Neither one seemed able to lead, but both were experts at dodging accountability. What had the audience rolling was Gutfeld comparing Kamala's vice presidency to a group project where she never shows up but still takes credit, while Walz runs Minnesota like he's waiting for the tutorial video to load.
Speak of former VP nominee Tim Walz, he joined Beto O'Rourke at a Texas town hall last night, and the estrogen levels were enough to give Chuck Norris menstrual cramps. I wonder, is our strength our diversity?
Our strength is our diversity. We've been talking about this for years as a country of immigrants, and we let them define the issue on immigration. We let them define the issue on DEI, and we let them define what woke is.
Finally came the knockout line. Gutfeld argued both Kamala and Walz are what happens when style beats substance. They're the political equivalent of wrapping an empty box in shiny paper. Kamala's laugh he called a national mystery, while Walz's vision for the future is practically an urban legend. He joked that if Walz ever announced a bold plan, you'd need a translator, a decoder ring, and half a year to understand it. He painted the perfect scene: Kamala at a podium, delivering something that sounds profound until you replay it 3 times and realize it's just nonsense, and Walz beside her with a binder full of buzzwords, lost on what chapter he's on. Together, they're like a duet with no melody, both talking, neither saying a thing. The best part, Gutfeld wasn't even finished, because as long as Kamala keeps speaking in riddles and Walz governs like he's reading instructions in invisible ink, there will always be another headline to mock another policy to laugh through and another circus act to roast.